we need to hear you singing. I think the audience just missed out. You were singing before I hit record, and it's a tragedy the audience didn't get to hear that.
No one knows the suffering I've endured. No
Oh my gosh.
but Jesus.
Bravo, sir. Bravo. Everyone's getting more than what they bargained for on today's podcast. Star Wars Loose Cannon. We are here with the Brothers Krynn. My name is Chris Higgins. And Dan and Joe, are both of you guys here today again?
Yep.
Awesome.
You may have heard Joe sing, but you don't hear me sing. Yeah, Dan's voice is probably too lovely for this podcast. You guys are gonna have to.
We'll have to paywall that if we.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yep. Paid subscribers only.
Yep. So, last time we left off on Reboot, I believe the Clone Wars had begun. No, wait. What was it? Begun these Clone Wars have.
Do you have a Yoda impression? Can you do a Yoda? Can you do a solid Yoda?
The entire thing is Yoda.
Begun the wars have. Clone Wars have.
Well, do this podcast in the Yoda manner. I cannot.
No, not. I wouldn't expect that from you. That would be. I don't even know if I would enjoy that.
Yeah. Well,
a tough challenge it would be.
Oh, shut up.
Oh. That's beautiful.
But
so yeah, I do think we did leave. I think that's where we left off. Things were starting to cook up. We pretty much got through. I feel the setup. Would you agree?
Yeah, we did the setup. We finished the prelude and prologue stuff. Now, the problem is when we were committing this to writing, we had gotten to I think 15, 17 chapters or something for the outline, and then we'd be starting the Clone Wars or something. It was around chapter 20 when, with one or two side story stuff as in between stuff. Because we had the Mandalorian Talanis Salazzar we planned. She was on Kamino. She fled because Dooku had called for her and a couple of the other Mandos. We wanted to deal with Kairos and all this. So the problem is, just a prologue got to be too long. So it's easier to just disseminate it into podcast audio form. It's just, this is way more convenient. And but last time we ended with the death of Kairos as he closes his eyes. Here's the voice of his Padawan who hung herself in her bed chambers, calling out to him, forgiving him, and him basically walking into the light. But with his lightsaber soon picked up by the droid General Grievous when the Jedi are all gone. And this seemed fitting. Our original plan for Kairos' death was going to be him dying in the tunnels to Grievous, but we had decided that maybe we should show a bit of mercy to the old master. But he should still die on Geonosis, and his corpse would be recovered by silly Tachi. And this way, and Yoda, and this way, like all the Jedi, he'd get a proper funeral, because I believe all the corpses were moved off Geonosis, because you're not going to leave your comrades' bodies there. The thing is, though, the Battle of Geonosis, as we all know, was a disaster. It was meant, the Jedi assault was meant to put an end to this war before it even began, but they failed. And what's more is that they failed to secure Boba Fett, who fled afterwards. And the thing is, they failed to capture any VIPs, and they failed to capture or slay Dooku. And they also didn't know what was down in those tunnels. They failed to mount a proper... several Jedi slipped into the tunnels but were slain by Grievous. So this was just an utter and unmitigated disaster. The only positive was that some Jedi did survive. Some of the clones were properly blooded. The droid factory was destroyed. But much of this can be attributed to the Brilliant joint leadership of Mace Windu and Yoda. Yoda led a rescue operation that was very impressive for Obi-Wan and Anakin, as we all know. Mace led the armies after he started the rescue operation in the Colosseum. And Mace's military leadership does not get enough praise, I find, by the fans. Considering that in the comics and novels, from what I understand, Mace never ever lost an actual military campaign or battle. Yoda lost a few battles, lost a few campaigns here and there. So this is the sort of these are two figures I really feel don't get enough love for their military capabilities. Although Yoda is sometimes a little overrated over Mace, I find, because Mace does not get the credit and love he deserves by a lot of fans, because he's kind of mean to Anakin, but he's mean to everybody. Like, what makes Anakin so special? Or other than being the main character.
Or the chosen one.
As to the Jedi we created, now, I'm actually going to have to open up the list. So for that, I'm actually going to do a quick plug myself. I'm going to go down to the Substack of Star Wars Loose Canon, where there's a list of the characters and whatnot. So, if you guys ever need to know about the characters and details and whatnot, and their styles and lightsaber colors, it's all there on Chris's Substack. So do check that out and subscribe over there. Anyways.
Thank you.
Anytime. Tahlon Kenobi is not there at Geonosis. He was, as everyone knows, left on an outer rim planet a few star systems away to oversee the last negotiations between two warring factions. We hadn't quite decided on the name of the planet, so normally we would make the planet and make up all the details if we didn't have one already from the actual canon. We didn't come up with one. But we were inspired to an extent by Melita/Dawn from Jedi Apprentice, book number 6, I believe. 5 and 6. And the trouble is, the idea was, though, Tahlon wanted to leave. Because, his father and, I guess, adoptive brother are in danger. So to him, this is, it's his job. It's his duty. No one else is going to do this. But he's left behind because his master fears for his safety and also thinks it best that his impulsive, untried Padawan, who does have a temper, stay where it's safe, or at least relatively safe between peace negotiations. The trouble is that our plan was that from the outset, within a few days, little does Tahlon know, but one of the factions, Dooku, reaches out to them. And thus Tahlon is soon captured. And now he's in a predicament because he is lured into a diplomatic meeting without expecting, things to go awry. And there's hostages, so he quickly surrenders like a good little Jedi should, though he's not happy about it. Now, this news gets out, and many of the Jedi are regrouping to Coruscant. But it's silly Tachi, who's Talon's mother, who decides to mount a rescue operation of her own. She does this with the permission of Mace and Yoda, because though Tahlon and Yoda butt heads, Yoda doesn't actually want him dead, because Yoda's a nice guy. So, Silly, she ends up mounting a rescue operation. Anakin wants to be present for it, but he's in no condition because he lost, he's missing a hand.
He's been disarmed.
Yes, he's been disarmed. He's an unarmed opponent. We could keep going. But Tahlon is thus in danger for the first few days of the Clone Wars. He's not able to prove himself very heroic or very impressive. He needs Mommy to come to his rescue. And she does it, bulldozing her way forward, smashing her way past security and whatnot, rescuing her son and his lightsaber, restoring his lightsaber to him, and they fight their way out. And though they defeat the faction that captured Tahlon, the trouble is they have to flee the planet, which soon falls to the CIS. Thus, Talon's entire mission is a failure. And Tahlon, though, is terribly upset about his master being dead. He is assigned to Celia as her new Padawan learner, which she volunteers, though she vowed never to take another Padawan after Ferris Olin. She agrees to train her son. So Tahlon and Celia are now mother and son, one team. And we wanted to emphasize this mother-son bond here. Also because Celia's temperament leaves a lasting impact on Tahlon to an extent. Because much as he's inspired a little by Sherlock Holmes, we kind of had the mentality, he has a bit of a mommy complex. So a lot of that comes into the foreground here, characterization-wise. Now, in the opening days of the Clone Wars, our idea was, now to refer back to our page with all the names, Malira is not present for Geonosis. Basically, she's left on Coruscant, and she's assigned to pretty much guarding the area next to Korriban. Basically taking over a satellite in the next door system, more for surveillance purposes. There's no real combat expected, but the CIS does attack because they take Korriban early in the war. And she quickly she's assigned a clone army as a commander, but she ends up forced to retreat. She kind of ends up in an ignominious position. And the thing is, the Sith who takes the area, because we relied on the idea of the Sith cults from all these different lore books and whatnot, is a member of one of those older secret cults that are loosely tied with, well, Sidious. And the Sith who takes over the star system, or at least the Sith commander, is, we simply termed him a Sith Knight, which this was kind of a rank millennia before. And we gave him the name Malignus. And he's a Cerusian, which means he can compress his skeleton and slip into tight spaces. Which is a neat trick. But he takes the star system with very little difficulty from her.
That's a good name, by the way, Malignus. I'm surprised that that's not already a...
Yeah, I know,
I'm surprised
right?
that's not already a Sith name, if it is.
Yeah. I came up with him, and the thing is, I'll be honest, Malira was originally part of a Star Wars Saga Editions campaign, along with a couple of her other crew members. But the thing is, I, as GM, decided that Order 66 would come out of the blue on a mission, and so she got killed off because, I think it was like the far-seeing, basically the sense force or use force skill, Dan failed to save, and I just insta-killed her. So she does die in Order 66. Spoilers. So I was that kind of GM. Like, okay, all right, crew. Your Jedi are going to have to make these saves. You fail, your clones kill you. And more than one player got upset. My goal was never to have them outshine Anakin Skywalker or be the next Anakin. But we molded this campaign, which was very convenient, into the fabric of the Kenobi timeline. But I mostly adjusted the story, and with Dan's help, into molding it, with the player's permission, better into the Kenobi timeline. So, none of these characters are really Mary Sue's, so never fear. They all kind of fail. As for Mikran Darklighter, I believe we were going to put her near Junction 5, near the mid-ring, which the Spaceport 88 Alliance is one of the 3 or 4 most important hyperspace lanes through which all commerce travels through. Junction 5 and its moon Della Luna, along with 2 other planets, manage this spaceport. And all commerce, I think, when you look at the map, when it's flat, it's in the southwest corner of the map. And I believe I remember reading up in the actual Jedi Apprentice book, or Legacy of the Jedi book, by Jude Watson, that almost a third or a fourth of all intergalactic commerce and trade goes through this system. Now, Mikrane is put near there, but ends up soon captured by, well, the Sith. And, well, the CIS, really, because why not? She leads an operation against the CIS, but the problem with her is she's not up to the same snuff as other Jedi, because she's more of a Jedi teacher and healer. So she quickly ends up a prisoner of war. And this will end up resulting in a rescue operation later. Fergus, we decided him and Gurion would be there for Geonosis, because they're the two fiercest of these Padawans. Well, Fergus by this time is already a knight. He's a full-fledged knight because he took his trials early, because he didn't want to be a Padawan, because his master was pretty psychologically abusive to him. So, he wants to be a man. He's a man! And I agree with that. But yes, I used to watch Linkara. So, Fergus ends up on Geonosis, but he ends up fairly traumatized by the amount of bloodshed and loss of lives. Gurion is much the same way, but Gurion is assigned pretty much to Outer Rim operations for a short time before, the Republic forces are pulled back like a carpet. And Fergus, for his part, he gets reassigned elsewhere, of course. And he initially wants to go, him and Anakin both want to go rescue Tahlon. They can't. So Fergus is pretty much stuck being assigned to a backwater. And the thing about Fergus is where other Jedi struggle with being military commanders, he kind of shines a little from the beginning. War is his element, really. So, as for... let me see who else. Have we got anyone else? I think we got everyone. Yeah, okay, we got everyone. So all the important people of kind of our little fanfic. So now the thing is, when Malira hears the report of her bestie's capture, she, of course, mounts a rescue op. But she ends up once more clashing with Darth Malignus. And this time she kind of gets the better of him. She wins out. And more in a military setting, because she relies on a little trick where she went in with only a small crew to rescue her friend, while keeping her fleet in the next star system. Malignus had planned on the fleet, but what he didn't count on was for Malira not to signal her fleet to advance, because he has his fleet positioned to thwart Malira's. But Malira had signaled to Mikrane's fleet, which was basically forced to pull back when Mikrane was captured. Well, sort of. They never really mobilized because Mikrane went in with just a few clones. But they're signaled in, so the reinforcements arrive from a different direction. Malignus's fleet has to switch over to try to react to this. And of course, you have Malira, who then has her own fleet march in. And Malignus, the problem is also sharing joint command with the incompetent Asajj Ventress. And Asajj, as everyone who's seen read anything of the Clone Wars knows, sometimes she's competent, sometimes she just bamboozles. And she does tend to put too much stock on her own abilities. She is very arrogant. And she always prefers a frontal assault, and especially in war and battle. This is why she can never quite beat Anakin, because you can't beat Anakin Skywalker with a frontal assault. Everyone knows that. It just doesn't work. So Malignus proposes retreat, and basically to retreat one system, bolster their defenses there, and prepare for the next battle. Basically, okay, we've been outmaneuvered, and before too many shots are fired, let's pull back. Asajj refuses, they lose the fleet, or at least a good chunk of it. But she blames the defeat on him. And because she was involved in the capture of Mikran. She blames the loss of Mikran on him. So Malignus kind of doesn't take this well. Now he doesn't look good in front of Palpatine and Sidious and Tyrannus. Now, Dooku's not stupid, and our idea was he kind of sees through this. Because he knows Asajj. He's like, yeah, but BS. BS. Malignus ain't that stupid. And Sidious, though, well, he doesn't care for either of them, so he does what he always does, which is what Sith always do. He plays them against each other. And the problem is, he suggests that Malignus be punished and be given the damaged fleet and damaged ships of the fleet and dispatched against Yoda, who's guarding the space sector of Naboo. And so Malignus is assigned to take Naboo. And the trouble here is Malignus is not in a position to really mount an assault. Now, our idea was that just to upgrade this villain a little, not to Worf Yoda too much as a commander, but Malignus gets the idea to basically just stack explosives into one capital ship, the largest he can get of his fleet, put it into hyperspace and lock it onto, the enemy fleet. And it's just going to go at hyperspace and just ram and blow up. The trouble is Malignus doesn't foresee that Yoda has, the Force. So he kind of senses what's coming. And his clone commanders get him to the escape pod, and Yoda survives. This assassination attempt on Yoda fails. But Yoda's fleet is defeated and forced to pull back. So we have a bit of a game of chess here that happens. Naboo is taken, but we had planned to use that as part of the plot. And the thing is, we all know how impulsive Anakin can get where anything Padme related is. Padme, we know, only cares about, to an extent, Naboo in the intergalactic scheme of things. So Padme is naturally going to be pushing, what about my planet? What about my planet? What about Naboo? And the trouble is Malignus was supposed to lose this battle, but he won in grand style. He must be rewarded. But the problem is...
One second, though. Isn't that fair for Padme, though, as a representative of
Yeah,
Naboo?
it is fair.
Because her primary interest should be Naboo.
Yeah.
It came off as like a criticism.
No.
But...
It sounds
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, her biggest concern is always Naboo.
I mean, there's a lot of criticisms of Padme that you've made that I've read, but this is one where it's like, it kind of makes sense that she would be only concerned about Naboo.
In her defense, now I'm actually going to say this, in her defense, her family would be amongst the first hunted down because you've got, for one thing... Ooh,
lost you there for a minute.
All right, we're back. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So
where you left off, last thing... Okay.
Oh, right. Padme naturally is very worried
in
about
her defense.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to launch myself into her defense. She has sister, she has nephews and nieces, she's got parents. We also have to bear in mind, and this is something I have to compliment her on, she is very good friends with the Queen. Like, this is the woman who took her job. And, as Queen of Naboo. So, Padme is someone who, when it comes to Naboo, she's popular for a reason. She fought for her planet. She defended her planet. She, let's be honest, went above and beyond the call of duty in a lot of ways. And, she's a terrible politician in the Senate. She really is. But, I kind of feel she was better as a queen. And had she remained queen, even with an extended term in office, she'd have done better. Like, Naboo would have flourished. And, not enough praise is heaped on her term in office. And that's something that, in my view, I think fans tend to forget in their hurry to kind of criticize Episode 1. Now, that said, our plan was here to bring the story to bear upon Anakin and Padme, where this is the first test of their relationship. Naboo has been captured. Dooku has it. Padme's family slips into hiding in Otogunga, even as the Queen is seized. Now, where we wanted to kind of hint at something is when Nute Gunray says, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go visit. This is Christmas for me." The thing is, Malignus is not willing to surrender the planet. He's still kind of pissy about, being stuck against Yoda when he knows he can't take Yoda. So he's a little pissy about that. And so he says, "Sure, but I demand the Trade Federation's resources then. And I'm going to be in charge of the Trade Federation now." Nute Gunray naturally says, "Wait, hold on. No." And Malignus says, "Well, I want a reward." Dooku pretty much agrees, "Fine, you're the governor of Naboo now." Sort of. And this is something that Sidious decides, yeah, let's give him this, because this could be good. This could be a good thing for my war here. I need emergency power to help save my homeworld. So this plays into Palpatine's plans. While on the other hand, you've got Nute Gunray who's angry because he didn't get to, keep vengeance upon Padme. Because Malignus is not willing to let Gunray run wild. Because that's now his trophy. So,
yeah, they really hate Padme. Like, they really don't like her.
Yeah, and the thing is, we're thinking, the funny fact of the matter is, Malignus does nothing to heap vengeance upon the Gungans or upon the Naboo. He just doesn't have any interest in harming them too much. And the most he does is disarm them, seize the planet, and moves into the palace. But the thing is, there are assassination attempts, so he cracks down a little, and then he decides to kind of move to the seaside house where Padme and Anakin were, because that is a much more secretive, much more easily defended location away from the population. So we were thinking there's that hint of Sithly cowardice. But on the other hand, it is a military decision. And the Gungans are not going to just make a move because they got to be careful. Now, we know within that at the end of the month, I think it's like at the end of the next 3 months in universe, Naboo has to be in Republic hands for one of the plots where there's an attempt to gas Gungans on the moon of Naboo. So we do need that plot point. We cannot contradict the actual canon. So we're just kind of maneuvering around it. So Malignus will lose Naboo. It's just a matter of how he's going to do it. And the thing is, we're now going to move the plot elsewhere. No, I think it's like 4 months or something, or 6 months. Well, either way, he has to lose Naboo down the road. And on the other end, you have Palpatine who says, well, I now need my emergency power. He gets it. Doesn't do anything initially with it, but he's got emergency power because his planet's in danger. Padme, this is where we want to highlight her integrity. The character we invented for the Twi'leks, Millennia, and others kind of vote against it. Now, Padme, we want to put the nuance in already that she's like, okay, yes, I agree with Jar Jar's decision. We did need some emergency structure in place to bring in an army. But, like, dude, you already have the power you need. Now give it back to the Senate. What we need is the Jedi to lead the armies. What does Naboo's capture at a Sith Lord's hands have to do with, like, what are you going to do with the emergency power? We're not trying to say that Padme is uncaring towards Naboo. She's just, in this regard, she's like, what? That makes no sense. So we wanted to show that she's already seeing through Palpatine a little, even as she's torn, because a part of her does want to give him emergency power because, like her homeworld, she wants to turn to somebody to rescue her home. But, so we put this idea of her being divided. Anakin naturally hates Malignus because he's like, well, I want Padme's homeworld back. And the thing is, the Jedi, though, are unsure of, how to approach that one. They do need to liberate Naboo, but the thing is, the outer and the mid-rim sectors near the outer rim are falling. They're folding to the CIS, and many are joining voluntarily. Now,
Really quick on the last thing, you talked about the emergency powers. Because people don't tend to want to give it back once they have it,
yeah,
right? Like, because you gave away the power, so how do you compel power to give it back, right? Like, you just made them more powerful, so now you're asking.
yep,
They don't have to.
yeah. The only people who ever did give it back in history are arguably Cincinnatus and arguably Scipio Africanus and his brother Lucius Africanus. Well, Lucius Scipio. These are the only men in history who ever were given complete and total emergency power, and they just immediately gave it back right after the emergency and crisis was over. But these are unusual men. These are men of a quality, that's very rare.
Yeah, like that's the exception, not the rule. It's definitely it's definitely hard to compel powerful men to give away their power. Usually it needs to be someone else who's equally powerful that you have to contend with. But if you are someone that, this is the thing, guys, everyone wants to be powerful, but in order to be powerful, you need to be smart. You need to have a lot of different qualities, right? Like you need to be intelligent. You need to have wisdom. Maybe you need to have other things as well, but one thing that can aid you in your pursuit of power, or just maybe having better mental clarity, better energy throughout your day. Whoa, what a segue. You might want to try Magic Mind, which is a mental performance shot that is packed with vitamins and nutrients that you can use as a daily complement to your caffeine or coffee regimen. Yeah, so maybe you don't have grandiose plots and ideas for gaining power. Maybe you just want to feel a little better throughout your day and get better nutrients. I mean, to me, that sounds pretty nice. I like to drink Magic Mind because I do love coffee. I probably drink 2 cups of coffee a day, but maybe in between that first and second coffee, I take a little shot of Magic Mind, and it has matcha, it has lion's mane mushroom, it has B vitamins and turmeric. So instead of just having more and more coffee, I'm getting actual nutrients and vitamins, which it's a lot more convenient when you get in this little shot. So I recommend anyone try it if you are someone like me that you need to be productive throughout your day. So we have a deal for you. And if you go to magicmind.com/Star Wars, you can get up to 48% off your first subscription. And you can cancel anytime, but you can also do just 20% off of a one-time purchase with our discount code StarWars20. Use that at checkout. We'll have this in the description of today's episode. So yeah, guys, give it a shot. You'll be supporting the show, and of course, you'll be having better mental clarity. But yeah, sorry to hijack there, guys.
I mean, Tachi takes it every morning in the lead up to his investigation into who stole his master's lightsaber. And that's how he arrives at the conclusion that there was someone in the shadows on Geonosis, in the tunnels down below. So,
how else do all these Jedi have a magic mind without taking magic mind, without magical powers that the Force gives you?
Of course they rely on magic mind. And
of course.
Yeah, of course. Which is the Star Wars equivalent of coffee.
Actually, are there any... do we have any... this is a good question for a podcast called Star Wars Loose Canon. Did Jedi drink caffeine? Do they drink caf?
Some do. I
Some
remember
do.
reading one or two of the books and comics. I think it was Timothy Zahn or something who introduced kappa, basically caffeine, into the universe. Hot chocolate was eventually introduced in the sequel era. And
that is such a Timothy Zahn thing to do.
Yeah. But
some of his books just be like, hey, he had a piece of chocolate. I'm like, okay, I guess chocolate exists in Star Wars.
Yeah. But the kappa thing really melded well, and I think it was the KOTOR comic book writers who eventually... I forget. I just remember it working really well, and just being like, oh, okay, I just accepted it and rolled with it.
But I love the idea of a Jedi drinking coffee, though. Like, I think that makes them more relatable.
Because we based... Our eldest brother kind of based Talon off of Sherlock Holmes to an extent. He always imagined Talon to be a bit of an insomniac and a caffeine addict. So
I relate to that.
Talon, though, is someone who, from the moment his master dies, becomes basically a little bitter and wants to investigate this. He's forbidden, so he goes and does it anyways. But the thing is, he discovers Grievous, of course. Very nearly dies, but he's rescued thanks to his master, Sealy. And after this, he agrees to have assigned to him a clone commando unit. Originally, he was assigned a clone legion to work with. He refused. He just decided to slip away. So instead, he generally operates with a clone commando unit called Alpha Squad. Now, initially, Talon's reluctant because he wants to do his own investigations. Because he's someone who's wondering, because, the Jedi, Obi-Wan did tell people, Dooku told me about this Darth Sidious who controls the Senate. Now, our idea with Talon was he's the first to start to kind of become a bit of a conspiracy theorist, I guess the term would be, regarding this. He's like, why would Darth Sidious? Why the hell would, where did that come from? Dooku was never much of a storyteller. He didn't have much imagination, and yet he can come up with a Sith Lord like that? Okay, something's weird here. And the thing is, originally he doesn't fully believe it. He goes in to disprove it in a way, but he's like, we investigators, we detectives have to investigate every loose thread. But mostly he's trying to investigate what Dooku was up to in the intervening years. And the Jedi are initially relieved to have him investigating the intervening years of Dooku's departure after Episode 1 and in, the events of Episode 2. So this is kind of it's keeping the boy out of trouble. The only one who is not informed of this is Palpatine. He's not at all informed because Talon's so insignificant. But Talon does have a clone commando unit assigned to him that are keeping an eye on him. So you've got Talon who's investigating something he really probably shouldn't be. And it's a loose thread. It's the Sifo-Dyas Moon of Bogdan connection. So he investigates that. And he's also wanting to push for whatever. He's thinking, this is a loose thread, but I'm going to investigate this till I can figure out who killed my master. Well, maybe not killed my master, but who stole his lightsaber. They've got to be connected some way. Because everything with Dooku is connected to the Moon of Bogdan and this missing lightsaber. Now, the lightsaber, as everyone knows, is basically a Jedi's most prized possession. Now, at a Jedi's funeral, the crystal is taken out, separated from the lightsaber, and the lightsaber is cremated with the Jedi. This is just how things operate. Talon's master did not have this, his funeral is not complete until his lightsaber is cremated. And so he cannot properly, under the Jedi belief system, rest in peace. So it's a bit of this filial piety that's motivating Talon. I have to find the lightsaber. I have to get that thing back. But he doesn't have a lead initially. So he investigates this other thing, which he's told, you're going to investigate this instead. Because you want to go back to Geonosis and check that. No, we're not sending you off to the Outer Rim like that. Go to Bogdan. Stay out of trouble, kid. So he ends up on Bogdan, as said. And he soon ends up... Dooku gets nervous. Because Dooku realizes what... he's investigating the Sifo-Dyas connection and the Jango Fett connection. Uh-oh. And so Dooku says, all right, well, the simple solution is I'll just have Asajj kill him. Asajj is sent out. She fails. And because Asajj has never fought against someone with a double-sided lightsaber. But on the other hand, Talon's rescued thanks to his master, who's one of the top 5 greatest lightsaber duelists in the galaxy. So it's not really Talon saving Talon, it's more his master saving him. At the same time, he's got a commando squad with him. So Asajj was kind of outmaneuvered. But Asajj, being Asajj, kind of fails to destroy the evidence at the scene of the crime, so to speak. So Talon only has a slight thread, but he starts to pursue it. And that's what leads him to kind of looking into Dooku a little more closely and trying to investigate where he's been in the past 10 years. So the thing is, this is a screw-up to an extent because it casts now Sidious is starting to realize after a few weeks, Kenobi is on the trail of Dooku. And this is not to say Tahlon is the most brilliant detective yet, but the idea was that his main thing is the Sifo Dyas and Moon of Bogdan connections that he's investigating. Because Sifo Dyas commanded an army. Well, we know Sifo Dyas didn't. So the idea, well, he did, but then it was hijacked by Dooku. So Tahlon kind of figures that one out and figures out the Moon of Bogdan connection. So the thing is, he finds very little on Bogdan, but he finds a little because there is evidence of the one cult Jango Fett destroyed still on the planet because, there's too many thousands of people dead to really bury them all. But it has been 10 years, so much of the temple, much of everything would have decayed. But like every building in Star Wars, there are cameras. So that would be the lead he'd find. But he'd only see some of the recordings for a few minutes before they are basically deleted. So it's really, he doesn't have anything to present to the Jedi. It's just, I saw this recording. Jango Fett did shake hands with Dooku 10 years ago or 11 years ago. Yeah, but do you have the recording? Well, no. Then you have nothing. So Talon's not doing himself any favors. So, yeah, I hope I didn't seem too off my rocker or random. Like I said, he's investigating a few things. This is background noise at this point in the plot. And this is really stuff that's like Talon's kind of moving 5 steps behind everyone else. But he's trying to figure out what the hell is going on here with Jango Fett saying, I was hired by Darth Tyrannus. Did Darth Tyrannus, call for an army, or did Sifo Dyas? And Dooku's the one who financed the production of the army. Okay, well, not Dooku, but Tyrannus did. So Tyrannus financed the army. Tyrannus, set up the army, but Sifo Dyas, requested it. So this entire thing is confusing to Kenobi. So it's why he decided to, he was ordered just to Bogdan, but he decides to pursue an investigation. And he's supposed to stay out of trouble, but he gets in trouble, as the Kenobis tend to do. Now, as for Mikran, to move back to her, she ends up kind of, she's assigned a clone army called the 339th Legion. And the thing is, this clone army...
One second. Who is Mikran again?
She is the bestie of Melira. She is one of Talon's friends that he grew up with. She is Mikran Darklighter. And
got it.
She's a school teacher, Jedi, who was thrown into the war. I'm going to... From now on, I'm going to do a recap of who every character is when I switch this scene over.
Cool. I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, it'll be much more helpful. Otherwise, I'm going to be a rambling lunatic. More so than you.
I can attest to that.
Hey. Well, Mikran screws up. She's not a natural at war. And she soon finds herself leading an army and not being very good at it. But the thing is, her army has to flee to another space sector, but they're soon cut off from the mid-rim, because they're off in the outer rim. And the thing is, they had to flee there. They did refuel and everything, but the planet basically told them, yeah, listen, we've received an order from the CIS to surrender. We're surrounded. We're going to surrender, but here, we're going to refuel your ships, but get out. We're going to be nice enough to say, get the out, but we're not going to do much more. We can't help you. Sorry. And don't land on our planet, otherwise we have to capture you and hand you over. So they give forewarning. So Mikran ends up trapped behind enemy lines with an army. But they're mostly moving like scavengers. From space sector to space sector. The thing about this unit is that Mikran, realizing how incompetent she is at war, we decided it would be interesting for the story if she does something that, well, this is where it was relying on a bit of the Christian ideal of humility. Mikran, who's a school teacher and a friend of Tahlon and Anakin's, steps down from the command in a way. She basically says, I'm a newly minted Jedi Knight. I'm a general, but I don't know the first thing. I've led 2 disastrous defeats. I'm going to basically just ask my clone commander, what do I do? And just do whatever he tells me. And the thing is, we kind of figured this would be an interesting gesture where the clone is the senior partner in a way. The clone has to step up a lot. He's basically thrust into the position of leadership because his Jedi commander just doesn't know what she's doing. And she realizes she's an incompetent at war. She knows diplomacy, she knows school teaching, but she's really not a warrior. And realizing this, she does, because this idea was kind of modeled in some ways after the idea, also, what would Padme do? What would Luke do if he wasn't a good general? Well, Luke would step down. Padme would step down. Like, if they were not, like, we know they're competent generals. Like, Padme and Luke are brilliant. But what if they weren't brilliant? And they had, like, you know what I mean? Rambo next to them. They'd step down. They'd say, all right, listen. I tried. I fought. I effed up. You take command in this military situation. So our idea was Mikran is one of the few Jedi who takes her command and just says, I'm just going to yes man everything my clone says. And her clone commander, Hale, let me check his number because we wrote his number down. His number's got to be somewhere. Let's see. We have Arc Commander 1139. All right, because in every video game, it's always Clone Commander 1138. So we decided 1139. And, am I having internet problems or computer problems again?
I'm still hearing you, okay?
Okay, good. My screen froze for a minute. So this was where she got them stuck behind enemy lines, having in the southwest corner, if you lay the map flat on the screen or something, of the galaxy. She's way past Spaceport 88. She had to take the hyperspace lane further south, and the trouble is she ended up on the barest, how do I put it? On the barest border of, where the mid-rim and outer rim is. And her clone commander, now they're not a threat to the CIS. They basically have to take the fleet around an asteroid field and hide. They're hiding and shutting down the ships and just sending out probes wherever they have to. And our idea was that they do land the ships to do repairs. But they would generally they would also spend a bit of time at one point in the Hoth system, just as a nod to what the rebels do. And they don't build a base there, they just simply kind of repair the ships, prep, and plan their next move. So they're off in the outer rim. They're not helpful to anyone, and everybody's basically like, well, they're dead. We lost our signal. So, because Dooku did have his jamming stations so that Republic ships could not communicate with each other between the mid and outer rims and the inner core and whatnot. So she's cut off. She screwed up majorly, and now her clone commander has to clean up after her. This is not us wanting to crap on our Jedi character here, but it's just us presenting an interesting scenario where the idea was, what if there was a clone who was a great man of history, basically? So this clone has to step up and say, okay. Because the thing about a lot of Star Wars Clone Wars novels is the clones are remarkably competent. These are brilliant officers and generals. And even Commander Cody is brilliant. A lot of these guys are really smart. So Hale's got to step up and figure out, how are we going to survive this on limited resources and rations and whatnot for a fleet that's many thousands large. I've got probably 20 to 30 ships. I got to get back to the core. We can't hide forever. So that's in one corner. And that's set up for what's to come next. And so we're leaving them in the Hoth system for now. Talon's over in traveling between Bogdan and Kamino and back to Bogdan to mount his investigations into Dooku, or at least Darth Tyrannus. So that's what he's doing. And we've got, of course, that investigation that will lead him further into the Mid-Rim, which will result in him missing out on a few battles, but ending up leading a series of commando operations to gather intel and whatnot for the Republic, and alongside his master and his clone commando squad. Now, we've got those two plot points set up. Now we have Malira, who, for her part, she wants to go rescue and find her bestie because she can still sense her with the Force. They have a Force bond. She knows Mikran's alive. Now, Malira, if people will remember, is someone who wanted to take medic training, but she kind of initially... Well, she's one of Anakin and Talon's friends. She's the hothead. She's the redhead. So naturally, she's hot. But the thing is, Malira is someone who, where Mikran is a failure as a commander, Malira finds she's a jack of all trades. She's not Anakin. She's not as good as him at all of this stuff. She's not an amazing commando investigator like Talon. She's finding she's kind of a jack of all trades. She's mediocre. But mediocrity does have its virtues at times. Because, if you know your limits, you know how to get past them. And she... the thing is, she does lead a successful mission to retake the space sector she was assigned to at the start of the war, over near Korriban. So, she rescued Mikran, she fought back and outsmarted Malignus, and she retakes, that area near Korriban. So we know, or at least the Jedi Council are saying, well, we know she can do a decent military operation. Now, Malira is someone who, she also has a brilliant military commander, the Arc Commander 11238, Krath. Now, Krath derives his name from an ancient Star Wars boogeyman, but the Krath were also a faction of dark Jedi, equal to the Sith in some ways, but then subsumed into the Sith in the Exar Kun Wars, 4,000 years before. They were very, very brutal, very, very cruel. Krath is someone who is very, very brutal in war. The idea is, if Hale is the kind of military commander who, how do I put it, is kind of inspired by men like Robert E. Lee, or actually Robert E. Lee's a good comparison for Hale. Kraft is more someone who he's like Edward the First in war. He's brutal and cruel, but he gets results. But the thing is, Malira is often trying to tame his cruelty and his savagery with Jedi kindness. So, you have this team where one's really kind of cold and brutal, and the other one is kind. So, because she's a medic. So you've got this weird combination, this team, where they don't necessarily see eye to eye, but they do know what they're doing. They're assigned after one operation. They're assigned to see to a rescue operation in a star system we ended up inventing. We had a lot of fun with the name. We called it Enderan. With, yes, a healthy nod to Alderaan. We had fun with this.
Enderand.
Yeah. But we decided to take a series of inspirations for it. The idea is that it's at the farthest reaches of the galaxy to the western part of the map. And the thing is, it's right next to the unknown regions. But it's about 4 star systems large. This is actually technically almost a duchy, or a queendom, or a kingdom, I should say, because normally they're ruled by kings, but In the male line, the kingship has died. And currently, the would-be sitting ruler is a child of about 4 or 5 years old, who's a little girl. So this is and the thing is, the star system, because it's right at the farthest reaches, but it is along you take the hyperspace line, you go there, and you can move to other parts of the outer rim. So the Jedi could find, in that way, a bit of a way to circumnavigate the growing stranglehold the CIS has over the, outer rim. And they can even hit to the mid-rim from behind to an extent. So when we looked at the map, we said, wouldn't it be neat right there? And the Jedi would look at this opportunity and say, we cannot allow that system to fall into CIS hands. We have a succession crisis. The king is dead. His daughter has been crowned by, loyal followers of the crown. But the thing is, her uncle, we decided, would be the evil uncle stereotype. So she basically has an evil uncle who calls in the CIS and says, I really want her dead. Could you arrange this for me? And Malira's called in. She comes to the rescue. And the thing is, she kind of does a remarkable job, but she ends up kind of slipping in, relying on, the thing is, she has her fleet stay at right next to the star system, because she sees it as, I don't want to just lead them. The thing is, the system right now is neutral. They've not declared for either side. If I bring an army in, I'm kind of invading their star system. So I need to just slip in. So she relies on a clone platoon of, a starfighter platoon as her escort, which this isn't so bad. She also decides to, she has in her lineup a former security officer from Coruscant who volunteered for the Navy and was put in her legion, Darren Paul, a Keldor, martial artist and, pretty good shot. But the Keldor, as everyone knows, are a race, Plo Koon, but they're a race who are married to the ideals of virtue and chivalry. So these are kind of guys who idealize knighthood in the original canon. So this guy is there was a lot of Keldor who volunteered as security officers. He was one of our players who just said, I want to play as a former security officer who gets assigned. All right, what race? Keldor. Well, it makes sense. There's a lot of those guys running around playing security and playing Jedi. Okay. But Darren Paul, how we explained it was, he's assigned to the Navy from almost a word go. He's one of many thousands of volunteers. Unfortunately, he's not prepared for this war to an extent. He is not many, this is World War I, basically. He's like, I'm a police officer, I'll volunteer. Little realizing how traumatizing this war will be. Now, the clone platoon commander for this, I don't want to say fleet, but this small group of 12 starfighters, is Clone Trooper 1159, Sergeant Muln. He doesn't have a name yet. Jaren Muln is the finest star pilot in the galaxy in Star Wars in this era. He's Obi-Wan's best friend from childhood. So,
I have a question really quick.
And he's an actual captain.
Yeah, just a quick question. This is a little bit off topic, but as some men of knowledge of French culture, right? I don't think I'm off base on that. I was speaking of World War I. I think I had read that if you were a man of age and you didn't try to fight in World War I, you were basically seen as less than human, basically, right? You were scum.
And in
if
World
you didn't
War
want, so there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
a lot.
And the thing is, the Quebecois were despised by, it was resented by a lot of people in France because you're French, shouldn't you be gung-ho to fight? The Quebecois, though, felt this isn't our fight. This is over in Europe. What do we care? But the thing is, the Quebecois were assigned manufacturing duties. So they became a manufacturing juggernaut that, But for the Quebecois, the best Canadian units and soldiers were generally from Quebec. So in Quebec, although they felt that they had no reason to fight for France, there were still many thousands of men who fought. So in French culture at the time, yeah, you're right, especially in France. But the thing is, France in World War I is coming off... la culture française is very martial. Like, you got to bear in mind, France was born from a melding of Rome, Celtic tribes, and Gothic and Germanic tribes. All these things mixed together formed France. And all these tribes and cultures have one thing in common. They're warrior nations. They're warrior tribes. So France, from the time of Clovis, when it was first really founded as Francia, has always had a warrior strain in her DNA. Like, interestingly...
Conquerors at heart.
Yeah. Interestingly, when I actually speak to Chinese and Japanese people, they often say that France is the China... Well, the Chinese like to say the China of Europe, but they also sometimes do acknowledge it's more the Japan of Europe. Just as Japan sometimes calls it that, because of how chivalry was born there, just as Bushido was born in Japan. But France has always had a nasty knack for picking fights, even when she couldn't actually carry it through, and other times when she could. The thing is, it's just like, the French love victory, they love peace, they love food, we love all that stuff. But we love winning too much, so we often end up getting sucked into a war, at which point the goal becomes winning. Not sure what winning means, but sometimes we forget what that... Like, we forget what it even means, and we just charge in and we go, oh, whoops.
That's awkward.
Yeah, basically. World War I... World War I was that situation where, like, 15% of the population, I think, was butchered. But the response was, well, we won. That's what counts. But it was a Pyrrhic victory. Like, French civilization, in a way, was destroyed.
But now you're depleted. You didn't actually get stronger. You got weaker.
Yeah, exactly. Same with World War II.
Which means you lost.
Yeah. France lost World War I and II, technically speaking.
By a lot of... Sorry, I just want to... Not to butt in, but part of me thinks certain elites could want to claim victory and claim honors and prestige for themselves for this quote-unquote victory, and also to sell that for, to the people.
It was worse for the British forces, which just destroyed their empire in their pursuit of glory and whatnot.
Yeah, glory. That's the good word.
Yeah. Now, France was also caught between the Nazi German forces and the Allied American forces, so everything got bombarded and destroyed in World War II. So the past 80 years has basically been reconstruction for France. Interestingly,
part of me was wondering if this would influence, once you started talking about World War I was like, well, from your perspective, the World War I is a little different since you have the French perspective, whereas I have more of an American side of the perspective.
We're in Canada. Our ancestors are from Quebec, but we have...
That's true. I don't want to speak for you.
No. Please, if you want to, you can. The thing is, though, Dan and I, like a lot of French people in Quebec and Canada, associate with France. France is the motherland. So for us, like, you ask us which one are you more loyal to, Quebec or France? It's like, how are they mutually exclusive? It's the same. Like, it's almost the same thing in our heads. Because there can't be a foreign policy without France, in a way, as French people. We just see it as France is the motherland. So all foreign policy for French people has to go through her and comes from her. This is just our culture. It's the way we perceive the world. But, like, it's this... Well, it's one thing that we don't understand about English people. Anglos tend to... Each country has its own... is like Australians are loyal to Australia. Americans are loyal to America. Canadians are loyal to Canada. New Zealand is loyal to New Zealand. But if, let's say, all of England got firebombed tomorrow and was utterly decimated of all life, most of the colonies would probably shrug and just say, well, okay, life continues. So this is something that
in fact, they might celebrate.
Maybe, but...
Well, the American colonies were, you know, if we think about them, they wanted allies against Britain for their, for their little revolution. Obviously, after that, the relationship changed, but...
Yeah, but since Quebec was originally angry with France, but has since World War II become married to her, in a way. But for French people the world over, if France is destroyed, our mother is destroyed. So, like, we can't... You know, it's like, well, we'll have to spill everything our nations have to rescue France. Why? Well, it's the motherland. We have to. It's not we want to, it's we must. At least that's how it generally works with most French people I meet.
That's how it's supposed to work. Colonialism is supposed to be a mother-child relationship or a father-child relationship, really. So you wouldn't want your mother to die. You wouldn't want any harm to come to them. No. But you might get in a fight. You might get angry at each other.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't help that with the French Canadians during World War I, it is very complicated why they didn't join war initially.
But the other thing was that the Canadian government in World War I and briefly in World War II had an anti-French policy within the country. So this complicated things as well, because there was a fight to be fought at home. It wasn't until the Canadian government that we're going to have to get squab on the French here and focus on brutalizing the Japanese for no reason. But I'm just saying because. But the thing with our perspective on the Clone Wars story in Star Wars is that's basically World War One, and the last Civil War is World War II.
Really quick, it sounded like your audio got a little bit worse for a second. I don't know if it's the internet or if you maybe moved or.
All right, I'm gonna move closer.
There you go.
All right. Well, the Clone Wars are supposed to be World War One in our eyes, so.
And just a heads up, I've got 15, 20 more minutes, and I'm happy to pick up for a part 3, so don't need to be rushed, if you know what I mean. So, like, if we have a lot more content, that's totally okay. We can just get through what we get through in the next, 15-ish minutes, if that's okay with you guys.
No problem. What we're building up to was a battle we were planning would be modeled after the Battle of Britain or the Battle of France, and...
Oh, so this is cool now, because now I'm kind of glad I brought that up about World War One, just because there's some tie-ins here. That's kind of cool.
Well, the thing is, Melira slips into Andoran with her crew, with this clone trooper sergeant, a security officer, and because security officer, he would understand how to navigate, security. At least from a perspective of, a diplomatic one. Now, Melira ends up having to flee from the star system because the evil Duke and Asajj actually end up planting a pretty damn good trap for her. She slips through thanks to the security officer and this clone. They smuggle the legitimate queen out of the space sector to Coruscant. And this queen is going to spend a good chunk of the Clone Wars on Coruscant. And Andoran falls to the CIS. And so, when Melira gets back, and she's the former medic turned commander of the... Did we actually assign a number to the damn thing? But the thing is, let me see. I gotta scroll up. The 436th Legion. That's right. Now, the thing is, Dooku has claimed most of the Outer Rim and Mid Rim. It's 3 months into the war. Things are moving back and forth, but generally the CIS are rolling forward. The idea is that now he's moving to press into the Inner Rim. And this is where we wanted to well, we know around this time in the actual universe, Dooku stopped really advancing it like a carpet into the Inner Rim, and, some space sectors moved back, some moved forward. It's a back and forth action. But what we decided to go with was the idea that there was a big battle. There's not that many mega battles where you have entire hundreds of fleets. So what we decided was this would be a great time in the Clone Wars to say, well, wouldn't the CIS then get insistent and say, all right, we're moving forward. And just as the Republic is saying, we got to rescue Naboo. It is the Supreme Chancellor's homeworld. Let's make a move. So both go to make a move. Sidious is playing both sides and says, all right, here's what I'm going to do. Now we know early in the Clone Wars, Sidious wanted the CIS to win. He preferred droids to clones. It was just the way he operated. Because droids didn't have the human element. Because, clones... the thing is, he's got the loyalty gene, but he doesn't know if he can count on it in the end. You know what I mean? So...
As you've said in some of your posts, that the loyalty gene was faulty. It wasn't 100%.
Yeah. Usually it is, but there are times when it gets faulty. So... Palpatine's not a stupid guy.
And if you have thousands of clones, then it's even if it's only less than 1%, that still is a lot.
Well, Palpatine actually has, I think, a few hundred billions of these clones.
Oh my god.
He's got millions to billions of these guys. No, I think it's in the billions. I'm not sure if it's 100 billion, but I know it's near that number or something.
I had no idea it was that many. That's insane.
Every capital ship has, I think, 35,000 men to operate it. A large Star Destroyer has, I think, a large Star Destroyer has 250,000 men to operate. So, per Star Destroyer, you have 250,000 men, I believe, according to one of the Boba Fett novels. So, what you're looking at is, well, if the Republic has, let's say, a billion of these starships, well, they have to have 250 per ship, 250 times a billion. You basically start getting into numbers like that. Or let's say it's 1 million. You have 250 times 1 million. The numbers start to stack up for a number of clones. And so the numbers would be staggering how many clones might prove to be Indies and have faulty loyalty genes. But typically the loyalty gene is working. It's just 1% or 2%. It doesn't work. And Sidious isn't a stupid guy. But, on the other hand, he needs to test the capabilities of his clones. How do you prove the clones are better? Well, you push them, against a wall. So, from a narrative standpoint, Sidious is being very practical at this point. He arranges things. And the ensuing battle, we decided, would have Anakin in it, Obi-Wan in it, Mace in it, Yoda in it, Dooku, Grievous, and it's a slug match where the CIS goes to make a move forward from mid-rim to inner rim. The Republic goes to counter. But the thing is, they realize soon enough that the CIS is bringing to bear hundreds of thousands of ships. And so the Republic tries to match the numbers as best they can. So this is where it becomes a space battle. And we ended up calling the Battle of the Mid-Rim. And in it, we were originally going to write it as a 10-chapter or 15-chapter slug match, where it'd be these lengthy chapters where it's, from one full chapter would be from one person's perspective on the side of the CIS. Then move to the Republican side, where you'd follow Darial Farron, the Trandoshan Jedi Master, who was a double-bladed lightsaber duelist, who trained Malira, but also kind of mentored Tahlon in how to use a double-sided lightsaber. Darial is one of the Jedi Masters who left to join the CIS, believing in Dooku. He doesn't initially believe Dooku's of the dark side. He believes he's of the light. So he was taken in by his charisma, because Darial is a reformist. He wants to reform the Jedi Order. He doesn't like where things are going, but Yoda won't change them, so he fought to take the other side. But he doesn't want to fight Jedi. So he's willing to fight everyone but Jedi. So, he's very naive and short-sighted. But he would be one perspective character. But the thing is, he gets wounded in the battle because he ends up against Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he cannot bring himself to fight Obi-Wan. So, because Obi-Wan lands in Darial's ship. Darial can't bring himself to fight him, and he's shot by a clone, and Darial is rescued, however, and pulled back. And Obi-Wan, of course, destroys the ship. With Darial forced out of the battle, he does survive, but he's removed from the battlefield and rescued by a few Jedi. And Obi-Wan did not actually want to kill him. He just wanted to capture him, because this is a guy he used to work with. So we wanted to use the occasion to highlight that, there's heroes on both sides, but that on an idealistic slant, neither man will try to kill each other because they're both good men, and they're like, wait, hold on, I can't shoot you. That sort of thing. Obi-Wan's like, I will capture you. Like, I'm willing to keep my lightsaber in my hand. And Darial sees it as, I choose surrender. I could never fight a Jedi. But, he like, on the other hand, Obi-Wan ends up having to fight against the droids. Because, and the clones fire, and Darial's wounded in the fighting. Now,
I have a quick question for you. I know I just feel like it might not. I want you to be able to get through it, but I also just have questions I'm curious about.
Okay.
Do you see? Sorry, this is like sort of off topic,
Okay.
but not really. Like, do you see Dooku as someone that was still had a little bit of honor after he turned to the dark side, or do you think he was still conniving and okay?
I do think there was a trace.
Like some sense of honor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because deep down he would call himself a gentleman.
Yeah, he had a gentleman's code. He could be conniving. The villain from...
Or was that veneer? Is that veneer though? Is he just kind of
Yeah.
like making it seem like he is? But
Well-
but go ahead.
He slaughtered his former childhood best friend and cackled as he slaughtered the man. And the man was defenseless. But on the other hand, we know he kept saying, well, I like Obi-Wan. I don't want to actually hurt him. So, like, he was a conflicted man. And we never had any intention to portray him otherwise. Like,
Yeah.
he's a complicated character and a great character. Played by the excellent Christopher Lee. God rest his soul.
Yep.
And, yeah, that's at least how we perceive him. He is conniving.
Think of how many more roles he would have gotten if he was just like 10 years younger. Like, he was fantastic.
Yes.
I know he already had a lot of roles, but just for our lifetime.
Yes. I so would have wanted him cast in something like one of my novels if they were ever made into a movie.
He really
Oh, yeah. He'd be perfect.
felt like a musketeer or something.
Well, he played Cardinal Richelieu, I think, once.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And that's your Lord of the Rings crossover for you guys.
But as for our Battle of the Mid-Rim, we finished with one character on the CIS side. What we were planning was Malignus would basically end up confronted by Anakin, because, Malignus took Naboo. Anakin is burning with the desire for vengeance. Because he believes Malignus has been slaughtering the people of Naboo and has been abusing them. Malignus has not. And this is where we'll give a bit of a spoiler. Malignus, there's a bit of good in him. He believes in a code of chivalry. He cannot harm women and children. He was raised by the Sith, but before he was raised by them, he was raised by a father who was a tribal chieftain, who instilled in him the concept of mercy and honor. So Malignus is someone who cannot bring himself to really destroy Naboo. Not to mention, he does love art and culture and architecture. So he's on the wrong planet. He's looking at Naboo and he's like, wow, this place is beautiful. So, because, like when you look at Naboo, it's gorgeous.
Ooh, that's a nice detail. I like that. It makes it more like Thrawn, who is of course the villain, but it's hard to understand him because he has appreciation for art, and that's a big part of his character. So I like that.
Well, the other thing is, Malignus, we were thinking of Dinobot from Beast Wars. So, like, I don't know if you ever saw Beast Wars.
Oh, I loved Beast Wars when I was a kid.
Okay, good. Well, Dinobot was one of our favorite characters, so we kind of wanted to bring him in and change him up a little. So Malignus is naturally conflicted about harming Naboo. But Anakin thinks, oh, you've been wrecking people, you've been slaughtering people, you have to have been. You're a Sith, you have Naboo at your mercy, you're going to do it. But in reality, Malignus has not been. But the thing is, Anakin shoots him down, Malignus has to land in his ship, and this is where we really thought, let's just show how Anakin can be a badass and kind of a one-track mind. He lands in the CIS ship, regardless of the fact that it's a Sith ship. Malignus is, despite being a Sith Knight and pretty powerful, and a Jarkai user, which makes him a little unexpected because Malignus, Jarkai in the hands of the Sith is a very aggressive style. But the thing is, Anakin is tapping a bit of his anger, which, as we all know, tends to give Anakin a bit of an adrenaline rush and give him a huge advantage. Malignus might be powerful in the Force, but he's no Anakin Skywalker. So Anakin starts to kind of terror him a new one. But Malignus gets the idea, okay, I'm going to retreat. He goes to flee in his own ship, Anakin destroys it with the Force. So Malignus, kind of startled and terrified, relies on the droids to shoot at Anakin, distract him, while Malignus jumps in Anakin's ship, orders the detonation of the ship, and flies out of it in Anakin's starfighter. Anakin naturally hops into one of the droid ships, flies out, and that capital ship goes boom. Malignus had tried to turn the tables on Anakin, but failed. On the other hand, Anakin's in a ship that's kind of crappy. So he has to retreat back to his ship, switch ships, come back. But by then, Malignus is wounded and has to retreat from the battle as well. So, like Darial before him. But on the other hand, we had the humorous idea, wouldn't it be funny if Anakin kind of lost his ship? And, well, Malignus then gives it a new paint job and decides, this is mine now. And we thought it'd be funny because Anakin's got a bit of an ego about his piloting. And this would stick in his paw a little. We shouldn't be poking fun at Anakin, but we can't help it.
Sometimes
Well, I think you can poke fun at Anakin a little bit.
You get some pulse.
Star Wars fans are Star Wars fans have a good sense of humor, I think.
It's like sometimes you get impulsive and you make stupid decisions and you pay for it.
Yeah. And in Malignus's case, we had thought once he realized I'm defeated and he was wounded, he went, oh yeah, okay. I'm retreating, orders the droids to kill Anakin, and, a bunch of destroyers arrive in the hangar and start blasting. Malignus is like, okay, I'm going to flee in my ship. Oh, Anakin just destroyed it with the Force. Okay, shoot. I'll take the next ship that's near it. Oh, Anakin's, yes. I'll take his and fly off. Now, the thing is, R2 ended up ejecting from the ship because R2 doesn't want to be around this guy. R2 might have tried to sabotage, but we had thought this guy... No, actually, I think we were thinking R2 went to sabotage this guy, and this guy ejected R2 because he was like, oh no, the R2 unit. No, better get rid of that. Pops R2 out, and R2 and Anakin have to go onto the droid ship, starfighter, and fly out and get a new ship. But Anakin, the thing is, if we bear in mind, he's got like dozens of these. Like, the Republic was packing... Like, the interesting thing was, Anakin used a starfighter that was not like a heavy fighter. It was a speedy, sleek ship. Because Anakin was a sleek... Like, he preferred to fight like a panther than a rhino. To make the comparison. So it doesn't have the heaviest shields, but it's good offensively. And, of course, we've got, on the other end, we wanted Mace to deal some heavy-duty damage. Melira, we had the idea... Now, she ends up taking her crew and landing in a capital ship, trying to imitate some of the heroics of Obi-Wan and Anakin. And she botches. She ends up kind of facing off against a Sith, the head of a Sith cult, actually. And this is where it ended up humorous in the campaign, because we had about 5-6 players. We fucked up. Sorry for cussing, but we screwed up. What ended up happening was Malira got assigned a Padawan learner, which was another player's 14-year-old character, but he had major minuses. But the thing is, we lost, I think, a character or two. We had the clone who had a hand chopped off to the Sith. We had Malira, who was beaten down utterly, completely, and pretty much, I think, almost smashed through a wall near the bridge. That was actually kind of embarrassing. But the thing is, they whittled at this Sith until finally the one who dealt the last killing blow was a 14-year-old Padawan learner.
It wasn't
But he killed him from behind.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't fight fair. No, we have to acknowledge that. He did not fight fair. He slashed at him from behind. I, as GM, failed my save and took it was like, what, 5-6 points of damage, and it just knocked me down as the NPC character. But we decided to keep it, but show the power of a Sith. But the thing is, the Sith had taken a blaster bolt wound and was slowed by pain. And, well, a Padawan just ran him through from behind. The idea was to show the desperation of the battle. I don't know if it sounds stupid or Gary Stewish, but the idea was this entire crew ends up they race out of the ship, get back in what starfighters they can with only, I think, the security guy, the Padawan, and one of the Jedi Masters died, and his Padawan also was still alive. Right, Julia. And the thing is, you just have the Padawan, who was called Skyrim Vigil, him, the Keldor, and the other Padawan, Julia, who was an NPC follower character of, I think, yours. And they end up just having to carry everybody out, escort people to the starfighters, fly back to the capital ship, and throw everyone in Bacta tanks. And so they sit the entire battle out. And so, though they have one great deed, they don't do anything after.
It's unlucky rolls at that point.
Well, yeah, and really powerful Sith Lord.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we melded that into the Kenobi timeline. But the thing with Skyrim Vigil, this young Padawan who got a lucky shot, a Luke Skywalker lucky shot, this would haunt him, because now he's the youngest Sith killer in the galaxy, and now Sith are going to be homing in on him. Because some 14-year-old got lucky when a Sith was distracted by a blaster bolt to the side and stabbed him in the back. And what this is going to do to this kid is now damn him. Because he was lucky. It was little more than luck. And I must stress that part. And a 14-year-old being on a battlefield is not a good idea. But, he slipped along, and he shouldn't have. But he proved an asset. He was knocked out of the fight early on, and then just got the drop on the Sith because, kid, who cares? So yeah, I don't know if that's dumb writing in people's opinion, but it's the Force. Malak could drop out of the sky and none of us would beat an eyelash, as it said in KOTOR 1. But then we get.
I think that might be where we have to leave it for today. I think that might be a good break for next. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to just say, the only one of the characters we had built up, we were going to have actually still standing, I guess, at the end of the fight was Fergus, who would prove himself a heroic enough guy, and he would not land in a CIS ship, but he would end up leading a starfighter division and commanding his unit and do fairly well. His legion, I mean. But the Battle of the Mid-Rim would end in the Republic pushing back the CIS from the Inner Rim and securing a chunk of the Mid-Rim. And basically this temporarily solidifies the border a little between inner and mid rim, splitting the galaxy into literally two, between the core and inner rim against the outer and half of the mid rim, about. And now they got to fight for the rest of the mid rim, and fight inch for inch against each other. That's it. This is 3 months into the war, and yeah, because our story, we did outlines of, okay, there's got to be a major event every 3 to 6 months. So this is the first major event. The hammer has fallen. They had a big slug match of thousands and thousands of capital ships. Millions, or if not, because it's Star Wars with a larger population, billions are dead. You know, most of our heroes look good. Most of the canon heroes look better. And we have plot threads seeded and planted here and there. Yeah, so that was it.
Okay, I wasn't sure. It just seemed like there was still maybe some more to be told, but that's, that's cool, man. It's a great story, and it's very character driven, like we talked about before, very narrative driven, a lot of different story threads, like you said. It could go in any different direction. It's kind of like a butterfly effect, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the very premise of it, is like one thing happens and then all these other things sprout out from there.
Yeah, and the whole idea was that this was kind of based off the Blitzkrieg of the Germans and Battle for Faust to an extent. Except in this case, it's a bit more of a... Well, it's also a bit like Verdun, the battles near there, where it just became an endless slug fight between Germans and French. So we kind of mixed the Bataille de France and the Bataille de Verdun together into this Blitzkrieg slug fight, which, there's a lot more droids than there are men and clones. But the thing is, the Jedi triumph and prevail, but their numbers are diminished. And, a lot of people died. And Palpatine got to see, how good the clones are. And you got to see that they are freaking badass. But what does it mean for everyone? Well, lots of coffins and body bags.
Yeah. A lot of dead Jedi. Just sad as well.
Yep.
Well, that was great.
Thank you.
So is that, I know that you guys spent a lot of time with this. Is this kind of like the end point for you? Are you planning to come back to it? And
we have everything outlined to the end of the Clone Wars, through the Galactic Civil War and through to Old Man Luke. So we outlined a lot. We outlined things over the course of several years.
Yeah.
But for the Clone Wars, we planned things in stages of, like I said, 3 to 6 months in universe. All these major events for each character. But then when we get to the Galactic Civil War, we generally just skipped ahead. Let's just skip to pretty much 16 years or 17 years later, right to Luke, because you know what? Luke's the fun part. We do get into a bit of the Galactic Civil War, but it's more like setup. This character's doing this character's doing that. We plant these seeds. That's it. We skip to Luke now, because Luke's the cool character. And him and Kyle Katarn. And so, when it comes to the Galactic Civil War, we modeled a lot of the narrative around Kyle and Luke and Leia and propping them up. So, and then we basically skip a lot in the post-original trilogy era and into the expanded universe era. We were not fans of the Yuuzhan Vong War, just to reveal to people. And we feel that the sequel era had a lot of lost potential. But that's a discussion for a whole other day. If you want, we'd be more than happy to come back for more of this weird Kenobi timeline. But I don't know if that would interest you, but...
Yeah, let's talk about that. We might do a part 3 and see how that goes. Or we could try to, or we might have something else that we want to talk about. We can just talk about that offline. But I think it's been really fun hearing about the story, and it's just so much fun to talk to you guys about Star Wars because you have so much knowledge of the lore, and your side of the lore is more on the EU, whereas mine's probably more on the Disney after Disney acquisition, which I know not everyone likes, but I like a lot of the books and I like the Clone Wars. Don't love the sequels. That's pretty common in the fandom these days, but
it's fine. We don't really like the Disney stuff, but you got to bear in mind, like after 2007, we didn't like a lot of the stuff that came after that. So like, I can't really I'm not gonna rage out or talk smack. Like, you like what you like, you love what you love, whatever. And this Kenobi timeline is meant to just be a love letter to the George Lucasian period and the classic Star Wars stuff, and fans. So, yeah, I would love to continue with the Kenobi timeline with you, but it's something
perfect.
We should. I view it as we do it when we can, and we try to make it entertaining for everyone.
Yeah,
succeeding, but yeah, this has been really relaxing, and I hope people will subscribe and support Star Wars Loose Cannon, because this is a great Spotify channel, which you guys do so much content. It amazes me, and I do hope if people are listening to this on Substack, do subscribe to Star Wars Loose Cannon, Chris Higgins, because your Substack's pretty cool.
Thank you, and you guys as well. You guys do a lot more content than we do, but it's awesome how you guys have something like every single day to read. So you guys are really working hard over there. Obviously, anyone that's listening to this, go over to the Brothers Krynn on Substack. They're also on YouTube, but mainly on Substack these days. And there's a really good community over there, people that comment and engage. So if you want to have a good discussion with other like-minded fans, highly recommend you go over there as well. But with that, thanks everyone for listening in today. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, we have an offer for Magic Mind, 20% off, up to 48% off, a subscription to the Productivity Mental Shot. And if you you can go to www.magicmind.com/Star Wars and use the promo code StarWars20 to get that discount. Just wanted to plug that again. But yeah, that's all I have. And I just wanted to thank the Brothers Krynn for coming back on the podcast. It's always fun talking Star Wars with you guys.
Pleasure's all ours.
Yeah. I look forward to any future discussions.
Same here. And everyone listening, may the Force be with you, and we will see you all next time.